Hello, everyone. Welcome to Synergita's Talentcast. Our guest today here is Yuri Kruman. He's an interim CEO for fast growth companies, builds strategic HR functions, and creates best company to work for employer brands. He's the author of What Millennials Really Want from Work and Life, with the forthcoming book called Be Your Own Commander in Chief, which is due out in January of 2021. Welcome, Yuri.
Thank you very much, Shubra. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Awesome. So we appreciate your time, and we obviously wanted to ask you some questions based on your experience in human resource. So let me ask you this. Since you started working in human resource, what in your experience has been the greatest challenge among engaging with employees through workforce planning, increasing employee engagement, or performance management? And how did you cope up with these challenges using technology?
I would say that one of the biggest pieces is trust. It's unfortunate, but in this day, most corporations have a lot of problem with just having trust from their employees, right? I mean, you can cite any number of factors between the distance between word and deed from the top, and of course that filters down and becomes bigger through the lower levels. You can talk about the compensation structure of most companies where the CEO makes, I don't know, 300 times or what have you, what the lowest level employees are making. You can talk about poor communication. You can talk about being beholden to shareholders, but let's not go too deep into that. Just on a practical level, I think that partly due to companies being just stressed, executives are stressed, everyone working there is stressed, and of course, COVID hasn't made that any better. It's made it even worse. There's a squeeze for productivity. There's a squeeze for survival. So there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of kind of negative emotional forces, not to mention the actual economic impact as well, circling throughout every organization. So trust is at a big premium, and of course, in this situation, HR is expected to somehow instill that trust, maintain that trust, develop that trust, and that's partly through communication. You have to just make sure to be on everyone's radar as much as possible. You also have to make sure that you're checking in with people. You have to make sure that you're doing coaching. You have to have clarity about people's job description, career pathways, how they're going to get promoted, because everyone is extra anxious, extra stressed. Certain elements of technology are very important. So let's say in my work doing digital transformation for, let's say, Inc. 5000 companies. So they're growing very quickly, but their processes, policies, procedures, systems are completely outdated. And they're no longer able to just run on this team of, rah, 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 our mission is the most important. Our vision is so fantastic, right? It's kind of like, all right, we're in survival mode. We're all pretending that it's fine. It'll be okay, but it's very tough. So technology gives people access to information. It enables people to communicate regularly. I'm someone who is an interim CHRO sitting in Brooklyn for a company in San Francisco. So for
Mhm.
me, technology, your Zoom, your Slack, Culture Ramp, and all these other tools, they're completely indispensable. I can't physically be in San Francisco very often, but for me, the human factor, which means, I'm a coach. So other than heading HR and building systems and making sure that our employer brand is excellent, my primary job is really checking in with people. So I'm on Zoom calls all day, checking in with different employees. How are you doing? How are your projects going? Let's help you figure out your personal and professional development plan. And let's make sure that we close the feedback loop on communication and getting things done. So I'm kind of the buffer between the top management and everybody else, and just making sure that only the top 10% of the most difficult problems filter up,
Mhm.
and the rest either I take care of it or I make sure everybody who needs to be on that task force, so to speak, is on
Mhm.
it. Problems are solved, and we move on to something more important.
Makes sense. Definitely. So yeah, that definitely concludes the technology is the way forward, and everybody's trying to adapt in whatever processes they possibly can, right?
Mhm.
All right. So my next question to you would be like, almost every organization has a performance management either system or a methodology in place. But what do you see as the actual need of the employees from a performance management process? Do you think organizations are matching those needs given the current scenario?
I would say that it's in normal times, this is not done well. In current times, companies that already had this right, they're doing it very well. Companies that didn't have it right to begin with are doing even worse. So it's this very unfortunate separation where either, let's say, HR really had its performance management piece together very well, and again, the feedback is not going to be effective if it's once a year, even if it's once every 6 months. If you look at what millennials want, so to speak, really, millennials don't want anything more than what everybody else has wanted at the same career stage. It's just they're not afraid to ask for it. That's the real difference. So I think everyone has always wanted, hey, give me feedback. Am I doing well? Am I not doing well? How are my presentation skills? How are my speaking skills? What about my analytics? Whatever. I want feedback, right? A normal person will want to know, am I doing well or am I doing not so well, and in granular detail. So again, if you have, before this whole COVID situation, if you have a good system in place where you're not only giving feedback, oh, hey, that was a great meeting, but yeah, you should work on your, I don't know, PowerPoint. So go take a course. It's not really helpful to kind of just throw that out by the water cooler and not track it and not follow up on it, right? So in companies that are, let's say, my typical scenario, an Inc. 5000 company, fast growth, again, kind of the startup roots of a company are starting to show, and not in a good way, right? They're at a place where they're too big to not have stable processes, SOPs, regular communication, performance management, and yeah, to do employee engagement surveys. So in that situation, the infrastructure is not great. Oh, your review, yeah, we're too busy now. Let's postpone that till February, and then you postpone it again and again and again. People leave. I'm not getting much out of this. Okay, so in the current situation, the simplest thing you can do, yeah, I mean, systems are important. You have to have technology. You have to have a system that can track all of that feedback. And again, to close the loop, right? So you don't just throw something out as a manager, hey, improve this, and it's not tracked, it's not followed up on, it's not actually improved. Never mind, it's not tested again. So you need to close that loop. Yeah, technology can be very useful. There are all sorts of different platforms like the one that you guys have, which does great work on this subject. But the key piece is you cannot leave it up to managers to remember and to hope that their calendar has all those check-ins, because it's not going to work. Too many things going on. You need nudges. So a good system for performance management nudges managers, hey, it's time for your one-on-one meeting this week with your reports, and it really should happen every week. And that feedback, what happens in that one-on-one meeting, part of it, yeah, I mean, you want to spend minimal time doing updates, but you want to say, hey, you know what, if you want to fulfill your goals for your 6 months, then you need to be taking this course on this platform. Do LinkedIn Learning. Here are a couple other courses I suggest, and track that in the system. See how they're doing. The system should nudge you and say, hey, check in with this person, have that conversation, track it, and then over time, by the time you have that yearly performance review, or quarterly or every 6 months, you have a track conversation. You see, has this person improved? Have they done what you suggested? Have they moved up? Are they ready for promotion in 6 months? So it's not rocket science. It just needs to be tracked, and you have to make sure that the system nudges you, ideally in at least a couple of ways.
Sure. So not just the notifications and reminders, but also some kind of suggestive actions from the manager, which the employee can follow, so that they seem to, feel that their management is equally invested in their growth. Makes sense.
Yeah, someone has to care, right? And you have to do it in a human way. You have to acknowledge that, hey, all of us really are in the same boat, regardless of sort of where we are in the totem pole. And given all of that, yeah, we have to check off whatever's on our list. But yeah, we want to make sure that, you're doing well here, that you move forward, that you
Mhm.
have, chances for meaningful professional development. And also, given how tough the times are, and this is also my philosophy when I come in as an interim CHRO, that's one of my things, right? I want to make sure that their personal development is also front and center, because people don't live in a vacuum. They have financial problems, they have career issues, they have, side hustles, and you can't just sort of put blinders on and hope that all of that doesn't interfere. It does. So, you have to make sure that the one-on-one meetings with each report reflect that. They always look to help, managers always look to help each report in a human way, but yes, also in a professional sense.
Makes sense, definitely. So my next question will definitely is going to be on top of what we just discussed. So with respect to performance management, the greatest change has definitely been the introduction of better structured objectives and feedback for employees. How do you think setting right objectives and continuous check-ins can make an organization more agile?
Sure. So let's take a step back and presume for a minute that we have achieved some kind of digital transformation, that we're starting from a little bit higher level than, my boss picks up the phone and says, "Hey, is this project done?" Like, that's okay. Like, we we can't do that. We can't run a proper business with that kind of mindset. But
Yeah.
some industries unfortunately are like that. Something like home health, with which I'm very familiar. So, presuming we're at a place where, let's say, we have Slack connects to 10 different apps, Zoom, Loom, Calendly, G Suite, I don't know, Culture Amp, Synergita, whatever it is, and five others, right? So you have one source of truth, one source of information for all internal communication, for project management updates, for all of that. So, we're in a place where we're starting to kind of look more to the future.
So my last question really would be about how do you make people accountable for their own performance? Eventually, an employee should be just as much or even more interested and more responsible to improve his or her performance. Otherwise, it's their future that gets affected. So how do you make people more involved and accountable towards their own performance?
I think the most important piece here is not, the particular technology you're using to nudge people. You can set all that up. There's no shortage of those. I think it's very important to look at philosophy, right? So as leaders, I believe this very strongly. I've been an employee in all kinds of different companies, from Fortune 500 to nascent startup and everything in between, pretty much every kind of role you can imagine. Project manager, product manager, finance and operations, business development and sales, HR, special projects. I've worn all those proverbial hats, and a number of industries as well. I'm in my sixth career, so I should give you some sense of,
Yeah.
I'm pretty well traveled by this point. And at a certain point you realize that, what, it's not so much about the right kind of talk. It's not just about smooth language and psychology, which it's very important. That's my specialization. But you have to start with the right premises, right? So if you're leaders, what should you be doing? You should be clearing the road for your employees, meaning make work, as it's not going to be simple necessarily, but facilitate it, right? Make it as facile as possible. Get them the right coaching, right? Because you have to get people to understand, why are we doing this? What is this for? How does this help you in your career pathway, right? So what's in it for you? Not just what's in it for me as a leader who gets equity and rah 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 you don't, but basically, as a leader, my job is to clear the road for people that I work with to make sure that they have everything they need to do their life's best work. And yes, that means personal alignment as well. Now, when I do that, when I go and clear the road, I'm the proverbial snow shovel, whatever. I go back to them and say, look, I went out on a limb for you. I did everything I could to empower you, to help you move forward in your career, to give you feedback, to give you the right tools. You know what? You've got to produce, and it's that simple, right? You don't have any crutches. You got everything you need, all the support, all the mindset work, all the tools, the planning, SOPs. Now it's your turn. Okay, and I think that alone tells people, okay, like that's it. And when they have the right mindset, they know what the path is, They know where it's going, how it's connected, how it's going to help them. There's really no reason why they shouldn't be owners, why they shouldn't be accountable. Because you got rid of that sense for them that, hey, someone is to blame. And it's, again, we're not looking backwards anymore. We got our house in order and we are taking care of you, right? So you're psychologically safe and you're clear about the bigger picture. Now it's all about helping yourself. You're helping yourself by doing well in your work. And that, when you kind of flip the table and show people that, suddenly like, yeah, you're right. Actually, this is pretty awesome. Like I'm in control of my fate,
Mhm.
and I'm going to do the best work because it's good for me.
Mhm.
That's it. You step back, let them do their thing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely really insightful, Yuri. So that I totally kind of get, speaking with so many HR professionals all across the industry. I definitely see a lot of parallel being drawn here, and I appreciate your insights into this. Um, Thank you so much for spending time and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Really appreciate it.